as you always stay in here, away in here. Remember what I taught you, Quasimodo. You are deformed.
I am deformed.
And you are ugly.
And I am ugly.
And these are crimes for which this world shows little pity. You do not comprehend.
Oh, my defender.
Out there they'll revile you as a monster.
I am a monster.
Out there they will hate and scorn and jeer.
A monster.
Why invite the constant and the constant nation? Stay in here. Be faithful to me. Grateful to me. Do as I say. Obey and stay in here. Remember, Quasimodo, this is your sanctuary.
My sanctuary. Safe behind these windows and these parapets of stone, gazing at the people down below me. All my life I wonder how they know, longing for the histories they show me. All my life I memorize their faces, knowing them as they will never know me. All my life I wonder how it feels to pass a day above them, but part of them. And out there, living in the sun, taste of morning out there. All I ask is one to hold forever out there, where they all live unaware. What I'd give, what I dare, just to live one day out there. Out there among the millers and the weavers and their wives, through the crooks and gables I can see them. Every day they shout and scold and go about their lives, heedless of the gift it is to be them. If I were in their skin, I'd treasure every instant out there, strolling by the Seine. Taste of morning out there, like ordinary men who freely walk about there, just one day, and then I swear I'll be content with my share. Won't resent, won't despair, old and bent, I won't care. I'll have spent one day out there.
I apologize, I have to interrupt that. You probably sit and listen to that all night. The Hunchback of Notre Dame is our 61st Spring Swing production, and you can see the full show on this stage March 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. You can reserve your tickets on our district website, and while the cast is still in rehearsals, they are also prepping for something that was started last summer, and they're prepping for our second summer theater, looking to repeat it. So this year, over the summer, we will be performing a rock opera, Jesus Christ Superstar. This is a community performance, and auditions are open to children and adults. So please look for the Governor Mifflin Theater Department on Facebook for more details. So another round of applause for our cast and staff. So thank you everyone for making time to be here this evening. I'm pleased to be in front of you representing the Governor Mifflin School District. My name is Steve Gerhard. I serve all of you as the Superintendent of Schools. And it's important that we continue to do these State of Districts as we've been doing the last few years to make sure that we're reporting out to our community the great work that our students and staff are doing, but also some of the existing challenges and opportunities that we have for growth, for improvement, and for some learning, and hoping to, with this evening in that presentation, be able to engage all of you in some work we'd like to do moving forward. Before we get started, I do want to introduce our school board members who are here this evening. As you may or may not know, January is annually recognized as the month that we thank and appreciate and recognize our school board of directors. There are 8 here this evening, and I would like to start by recognize, when I call your name, to please stand, Jim Ulrich. Jim is in the back. Jim Ulrich is our board president. Jim has been on the board for 24 years. And we thank him for his many years of service. Lisa Peterson is our vice president. And the remaining cast of characters, I'll say, is Karen Friedlander. Karen. Dr. Michelle O'Brien. Jill Kestel. Thanks, Jill. Don Kennedy, Betsy Adams, and lastly, Dawn Clange. And might not have been able to make it, running a little late. Okay, so to get started, again, I welcome you to the 2019 State of the District. Before we get started, thank you for your time sharing with our students the learning that they've been doing over the year. I'm always impressed when you hear the students and how they're presenting their learning and engaging with you. And so thank you if you made your way around to the exhibits. And thank you to all of the staff and other community supporters that were here this evening to share with all of you the work that we've been doing both in our classrooms and out into the larger community. So if we could get a round of applause loud enough for those that might still be out in the lobby, and thank you, them. So the agenda that we use for the evening has been a pretty standard agenda that we've been following, adding new information and new narratives each time. And so this evening, as we've already done and will continue to do 2 more times through the evening, showcase our students and our staff. We'll take some time in this first segment to review our performance. Then some members of my administrative team will come up and present various aspects of the work that they're doing with staff in the larger organization. And then we'll close with some of the opportunities before us as you leave here this evening. So I start with this. This was a framework that I shared with the community a number of years ago. It may not be always or as easy to see, but it basically represents what schools across the world that are high performing have in common that produce uncommon results. And it's a framework that is used in the country. Various schools adapt it and take a look at then how do they organize their systems, because it is a system thing, to accomplish one thing, which is preparing college, career, and future-ready students. And that idea of college, career, and future-ready students, well, I say it's an idea, it's really not an ideal. It is tangible, measurable, and it is what we should be striving for and what the community should be expecting us to produce throughout a pre-K through 12 education. So when we talk about college, career, and future ready, one of the models that I shared with the community last year, and I'll report out on some of that data here in a second, but also I'll bring it back to the very end because I think it's important as a larger community that we do think about, well, what does it mean to be college, career, and future ready? Because if I think back when I graduated from Governor Mifflin in 1987, what it meant at that time to be college and career ready looks a lot different than what it means now. And we put in the piece about future ready because while we are educating students with what we know now and some worthy predictions of what the future might hold, it's important though that we're developing students so that whatever develops in the future, our students can adapt and grow and be successful and thrive in whatever changes occur in our society, our economy, and our nation. So some of the ideas that I shared last year at this time about what it means to be college ready is just sharing some of the work from Redefining Ready. And it's just one model among many other models that's out there. And as I said earlier, be interested, and one of the things that we need to do as a community is go through this larger conversation of what does it mean to be college ready. But here's one example that has a research base to it and talks about what a profile of a student that's college ready looks like. 2.8 or better, 3+ on an AP exam, C or better in Algebra 2, SAT score, FAFSA completion, and so forth. Now, it's not all of those things, but at least two of those items is what the research points to for students to be considered college ready. Career ready, and this is something that we really should be holding out for all students, even those that go to college, is what does it take to be career ready and to be successful in the workplace? 90% or better attendance. Probably not a hard thing to argue with. Those employers in the audience probably attest to, I just want a worker that shows up on a regular basis. A student who's active in community service, and the idea of caring about others and thinking beyond themselves. A student that while they're still in school finds workplace learning experiences so they can truly, while they're in school, have those experiences to figure out what it is they want to do when they get out into the work world. Industry credentials, in other words, how can we get students to leave high school with having certificates saying that they can perform to industry standards? You see it most evident in students that we have attending our Berks Career and Technology Center and the credentials that they graduate with. Many of them are going and getting very gainful employment right out of high school because of the credentials they earned. And lastly, and this is an important piece, participation in co-curricular. We have many co-curricular events, and one of my colleagues points out that one of the advantages that he sees, and now I see it through what he pointed out to me, is that as a school district, we're a big, small school. And to explain that, when you take a look at the variety of size school districts, we offer a lot compared to the size of district that we are when you stack us up against district that might be 5,000, 6,000 students or more. And so I'd be hard-pressed for a student to come and say there's no co-curricular activities here for me that interest me. Because I would also say if there's not, then let's start one. So those are the elements of career ready. And then future ready is this evolving definition. You know, what does it mean to be able to adapt to the future? Certainly we hear things about grit. Hopefully you had an opportunity to see the students from Brecknock Elementary talk about growth mindset, this idea of persevering, sticking with it. And lastly, dream big. And the idea of that if your dreams don't scare you, you're not dreaming enough or big enough. So how do we measure, how do we look at those indicators and how our students do? Well, let's take a look at the class of 2018. Last year, we had 324 graduates, and we're blessed with a great deal of community support in being able to provide over $150,000 in college scholarships to those students. Of those graduates, 213 students sat and took the SAT score. Those graduates, a mean score was 1099, and if you remember, the score of 1010 or better to be college ready, 74% of them attained a 1010 or better. So if they were to hit one of those indicators, that 74% are meeting that research basis to be ready for college. Where are they now? 77% of our students are enrolled, hopefully still today, as we move into the second semester, in a 2-year or a 4-year college or a trade school or a technical school. 15% entered the workforce, and 5% are in the United States Army. And you might say, well, that doesn't add up to 100, and of course there's always 1 or 2% where we don't get the data from that student in regards to what their post-secondary plans are. But I want to come back to that 15% workforce number later on in the presentation. So where did they go? How did they spread their wings? This is just a quick look at the map of where our students have reached out. Just a quick sampling of some of the colleges and universities our students have attended. Last year we had 2 graduates attend the academies, one in the Naval Academy, the other the Coast Guard Academy. And then regarding our trade and technical schools, we have a significant number of our students that attend one of the trade and technical schools. So why is this important? Why is it important to take a look at college going rates or those entering the workforce? Take a look at, this was some information that the National Center on the Education and Economy just put out relative to taking a look at the 36 countries and their educational systems that make up the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So we've long known that the United States has a very strong history and trend of sending students to college and those students completing their 2- or 4-year degree. In fact, you can see that we are above the OECD average when it comes to taking a look at adults out there between the ages of 25 and 34. But this is an interesting number then when you take a look at those in the workforce. Ooh, went too far. So here, this is the percent of 15 through 29-year-olds that are not in education, are underemployed, and are not in any training program. So if you look at the OECD average at 13%, as a nation, we are at that 13% of a population that is underemployed or unemployed and not in an educational or training program, vocational training, apprenticeship, so forth. And how that stacks up to other countries that make up the 36 nations in the OECD. I'll also come back to that 15%, as I shared with you, for our district's performance a little bit later. So let's take a look at some of the other indicators that we have locally to see how our students are getting ready for college and career. So when we take a look at just the course grades from senior year of our students, you can see the majority of our students are in the A, B, and C range. Those students, their students all A's, higher than a C, that thinking, again, that idea that 2.8 or better, and unfortunately some students making a choice to take an F in a course. Looking at course enrollment, we're talking about students that are enrolled in advanced placement or in honors or in a career program. These are 49.7% of our senior class took 1 or more advanced placement courses. And I talk in years past about why I feel it's important that students that want to attend a 2- or 4-year school take at least 1 advanced placement course while they're here. Because AP is the best college prep experience that our students can have, and where better place to take that risk when you have the safety net of our staff to help and push you to basically take a chance and challenge yourself. Students at Algebra 2, students that went beyond Algebra 2. And look at the bottom number in regards to when we took a look at the course taking patterns of students that were nowhere in their schedule from 9th through 12th grade, is there any evidence that they took any coursework or did any programming that fits any of the criteria of being college or career ready? It's 13.9%. So we have to, as a community and as a district, I believe, go down a line of inquiry of how do we, when we look at this national percentage, how do we think locally and work with our students and their families to see why it's important that after high school, either you need the opportunities you need to explore while you're still in high school, but then also the importance of staying engaged in some post-secondary education or training when you leave high school. Talk about 90% or better attendance. We had 25% of our students that were here that were absent 5 days or less, very strong attendance. 90% that 15 days or less, 44%. So the majority of our students were coming and beating that 90% attendance. But unfortunately, we had 30% students that were out of school 15 or more days. Now, that admittedly, in that number, that could be family trips, things of that nature, but it does have an impact overall on the student's experience while they're here in school to be missing that much education. Here's another interesting piece that I've been following the last couple years because I think it challenges us to think differently in terms of an educational system. And I've shared this data last year, and the data that we have this year is pretty consistent. We think many times about K-12, and we talk about K-12 alignment. And we talk about what are all the things students that come into kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. But how do we as a system adapt when half of our students are not starting with us in kindergarten and coming to us at varied points in their school career? And how are we adapting to their experiences, the curriculum they've experienced, the learning experiences that they've had, and assimilate them successfully into our program? So you can see the range of where students that were in this last year's senior class are coming to us. That last data point of 25 students intermittent enrollment, that means they were here, they left us, and they came back at least more than once. And we know in the research that there are three or four things that negatively have an impact on students' learning. Of them, the top two of the negative impacts on students' learning: summer and mobility. Mobility meaning how many times a student changes schools, has a significant negative impact on their success and their learning. And so it's called out in some of the data that we have relative to the dropouts that we experienced last year. Last year, we had 16 students that decided that the best choice that they had was to drop out of school. Of those 16 students, 11 of them came to us from another district. The majority of them came to us after the 9th grade. So again, as a district community, a line of inquiry to when we see a student where the at-risk signs are there, comes to us in the middle school and secondary years, how do we adapt to those warning signs and assimilate them so that they stay in school? So let's talk now about the students that we have in front of us this year. So that data was from the performance of last year. And I want to share with you some data that we have relative to our students that are here in front of us now, and some of the narrative as far as why. Earlier I was having a conversation when we talk about showing the information, we need to tell the story of so what. Why is it important? Well, here's one piece. This is our enrollment pre-K through grade 12. And I called out the pre-K piece because last year we started a class for 20 students in our pre-K program. And this year we were successful in securing more grant dollars from the state of Pennsylvania and have opened up a second class. So we currently have 40 pre-K students being served in our Coomer Elementary. And I should point out, those 40 students would not have been in a preschool or pre-kindergarten program had we not had this opportunity for them. And there's a growing body of research that talks about the lifelong impact that students not having access to a high-quality pre-kindergarten program has on their longitudinal career in life. Here's our ethnicity that is changing, and it's a piece for us to celebrate, and it's a piece for us to take a look and say, again, how do we take a look and make sure that we are an inclusive school and celebrating the diversity that we have with the changing demographics that we're experiencing, not only here at Governor Mifflin, but certainly throughout our nation. We serve all students. We do not turn students away, nor should we. It is our moral imperative to serve all students. And we know that some students have a higher degree of need. And many times it's very specialized. And we have that moral imperative as well as that legal obligation to provide them a high-quality education. It comes at an expense. And in some cases, the students' needs are so great that they cannot be served, unfortunately, in our school walls. And we have to partner with out-of-district providers, both in special education as well as alternative education. And so this year we're serving 60 students and their families. I put up there a cost so we're aware as you go through and see some of these things, some of the things that we have control over and some of the things that we don't when it comes to a budget perspective. English language learners, we've had a bump again this year. We are currently serving 107 students, K through 12, that are English language learners. Special education population, we're experiencing some growth in the number of students that are not only being identified when they're here as students, but also we talk about that mobility of students moving in and the number and percentage of students that are moving into our district already having an identification of special education and how do we work to serve them. So since 07-08, where we were typically around 12 to 14%, now up in just above 20%. How that compares with the state of Pennsylvania is typically in a 14-15% of the state is student population is identified special education. Free and reduced lunch. This is a data piece that calls out our socioeconomic situation in our community and in our schools. 44% of our students qualify for free or reduced lunch. 10 years ago, that data point was around 19%. So you can see just in 10 years, in a 10-year period of time, the changes that we were experiencing in our society that we're also experiencing here in our schools. One thing to point out as a highlight, last year you may have seen if you were driving on 724 in the summer, we were able to provide for the first year, and we expected to do it next year and beyond, a summer lunch program for all students 18 years or younger. Typically, on average, each day we were serving about 100 students free lunch in the Kumru Elementary School as part of the free lunch program. And we have plans to enhance that experience even more with our students with our reading initiative that Mr. McKay will explain later. Some of you may hear from time to time the cyber charter schools. You may even see commercials on it. We have 51 students that by the way the laws are written in the state of Pennsylvania are enrolled in out-of-district for-profit cyber schools. And we must pay the per-pupil amount for those students, both regular ed and special education. It is a complete parent choice to go to a cyber school. Well, a number of years ago, we wanted to counter that. And we believe we have a better option. We believe that not only can we provide the option of online education, but we can give you the best of both worlds because we can give you the classrooms and the educational experience that's in the four walls of our buildings as well as online. And you as a student and a family can blend that world, and you can also take advantage of the co-curricular activities that we have. We've been very successful over the years in changing the number. Just looking at some data today, in June 2015, we had 85 students attending a for-profit cyber school. 16 students were attending our cyber school. So through the efforts of Dr. Hess and a number of the other administrators and guidance counselors in our school district, we've been able to show our families that we have a better option. We still have a lot more work to do because I want to keep engaging those families of those 51 students to bring them back here to Governor Mifflin. we have 48 students enrolled in what we call our GM Gold program, which is our online. Why is this important? So the 51 students that are currently out in cyber school, we have to pay what our per pupil costs are. For a regular education for the 18-19 school year, that's $11,321. For special education student, it's $26,000 plus. So all told, if those 51 students started on day one and finished on the last day of the school year, the total tuition bill paid to the local taxpayer in the Government Mifflin School District to the out-of-district for-profit cyber schools is $758,000. Currently, the 48 students that are in our GM Gold program, beginning of year to end of year, total cost $216,000. So you can see why we've been as aggressive as we can be to try to not only market the better program that we can have, the better option that we can provide students, but there's also a financial piece because that financial resource that goes to the for-profit cyber leaves this community. So talking real quick about some of our academic performance, going back to the 17-18 year now, this is talking about our whole district. ELA, we know that students get assessed on PSSA tests from grades 3 through 8, and then on the Keystone Literature exam in high school. Those scores combined, in the last year we were at 66% proficiency. Ups and downs throughout our school buildings, definitely opportunities again for us to take a look at where we see that the needle just keeps staying at that same number, and what are some things that we can do. And Mr. McKay will talk a little bit about some of the work that we've introduced this year in our ELA with reading. Mathematics, similar story, staying the same. About 50% of our students proficient or advanced. This includes grades 3 through 8, as well as the Keystone Algebra 1 exam. And our science exam that's given in grades 4, grades 8, and the Keystone exam that's given for biology. With those scores combined, our students were 74% proficient or advanced. What does that mean? Just to give you an idea, to drill down a little bit, our high school, with our Keystone performance, with ESSA, which is Every Student Succeeds Act, which is a piece of federal legislation that replaced No Child Left Behind. We were identified in 3 areas for improvement, both in regards to proficiency, regards to growth, and regards to our attendance. So as a high school, we were put on a targeted improvement list for the state of Pennsylvania, and we have an opportunity to really go down and a line of inquiry to see what can we learn. And it's not just a high school thing, it's an entire systems thing. Going on some highlights for the high school. I mentioned earlier why it's important for our students to challenge themselves if they're going to go to college and take an honors or an advanced placement course. So here represents the growth of our enrollment over the years. Back in 14-15, 890 students, and this could be more than one student. This is just simply counting the enrollments. Students challenge themselves by taking either an honors or an advanced placement course. Over the years, not only have we been able to add some additional AP offerings and honors offerings, but we've also been able to increase the enrollment of students challenging themselves, knowing that they have the support of our high school staff. And so that number currently of students enrolled is just over 1,300. Now, what's the story to tell there? Sometimes people will say, well, if you have more students attending AP courses and taking AP exams, then the test average is going to come down. Well, that's not the case here. So if you see over the last few years, not only have we been able to increase the number of students that sit and challenge themselves and take an advanced placement exam, but with that growth in number, we've been able to stay consistent with our performance of students scoring a 3 or better on an advanced placement exam. So we've gone from 270 exams to 426 in 3 years, and are still performing at that 68, 69% number. What does that mean? It means we are recognized both on the College Board AP Honor Roll for increasing enrollment and at the same time having increasing test takers and performance. And secondly, we were just recognized by the Washington Post as one of the most challenging high schools in America. This performance in advanced placement puts us in the top 15% of all high schools in the United States of America. Puts us in the top 30 of high schools in the state of Pennsylvania. So we have some successes, the hard work of our staff, the hard work of our students. And from that, we have some real opportunities, I believe, with that model to take a look at how can we, it's not about necessarily AP and honor, but let's take a look at what's occurring in our system and in our practice to see if we are able to increase enrollment in advanced placement and honors, how can we bring some of that same thinking in terms of how we work with our special education students and improve their performance and their experience when they're here in our schools. So with that, take a break so that we can have an opportunity to hear from one of our student groups. The Governor Mifflin Middle School Woodwind Choir was established in 2017 under the direction of Miss Stephanie Carter. This ensemble is an audition group of 7th and 8th grade students who perform chamber music in a variety of styles. Students develop independence for their parts, as well as a respect and understanding of their roles in the ensemble. The chamber group has performed in the community and beyond, and the students have continued to develop a love of music that lasts a lifetime. Please welcome the Governor Mifflin Middle School Woodwind Choir.
Good evening, and thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Stephanie Carter, and I am the concert band teacher at the middle school. All of the students that you see behind me are members of the 7th and 8th grade concert band. But unlike that setting, they're used to seeing me conducting and being in front of them in that way. And with a chamber group, they're able to develop like small ensemble skills. They're able to refine their listening skills, their communication skills, and build a better sense of being playing on an individual part. So where in concert band, they may be playing with like 4 or 10 other people on one part. It may just be them in this sort of setting. So having a director that's playing along with them and kind of guiding from the side in that way, it's a totally different experience. Our first 3 pieces were titled Sonatina, March of the Men of the Harlech, and Amazing Grace, and we are going to end with Integrity. This group also will be performing at the Capitol in March. We performed at some local retirement homes during the holiday season with Woodwind Choir, with Honors Orchestra and the Show Choir, and they're so excited to play some more throughout the year and keep growing as a group. Thank you so much, and here's our last piece, Integrity.
Good evening. My name is Bill McKay. I'm one of the assistant superintendents of Governor Mifflin School District. Myself, along with Dr. Lambie and Dr. Hess and all of the principals in Governor Mifflin, sort of take the lead on the high quality instruction system. So we're going to share some of the highlights this evening with you. It's not often I get a room full of adults that are mostly not teachers and we get to talk education, but I'll take advantage of that and I'll try to keep it short. And there it is. Okay, so our main initiative this year, Stephen mentioned we wanted to improve in the area of ELA, English Language Arts. So it all begins with reading, and that's where we focused our energies this year. And we've transitioned from what was a one-size-fits-all reading instructional practice to a reading workshop model this year. And reading workshop basically is a teacher giving direct instruction on a mini lesson that usually is connected to a reading strategy. The students then take that reading strategy and they go practice it during independent reading time. And it's just like anything else, we get better by practice. Students get better by practicing reading. And unfortunately, in most schools, there's not a lot of reading that goes on with actually a student reading during the day. I think I saw a national average that it was under like 6 to 7 minutes of actual reading time in a book. We've changed that this year, and at this point in the year, I would say most of our students on a daily basis are independently reading for 10 to 20 minutes. So we've got a high volume of independent reading. They get to practice those skills that the teachers teach them in the mini lesson. And then during that time, the teacher also brings small groups together to work on specific skills like inferencing or cause and effect. And then they also have individual one-on-one conferences specific to the needs of the individual learner to help them grow. The high volume independent reading I talked about, the important part of that is putting the students in Just Right books. And I know a couple of the tables that were set out in the lobby tonight, they were sharing that. Just Right books are books that a student can read with 95 to 100% accuracy. So they're not stumbling over what they're reading, they're very smooth in their reading and they're practicing. And it's also something that they have some choice in, so it's a high interest for them. They're motivated to read, they love to read. A third component that we're rolling out this year is Mifflin Reads, and this is a initiative we're very excited about. One of the things we know is during the school day, we can give access to books to our students. We have libraries, we have classroom libraries, we have building libraries, but once they leave the walls of our school, they may not have access to as many books at home. So we're going to connect them with community libraries. At our summer lunch program, we're going to get some summer hours going for our Kumru library and be able to have students have access to books there. And we're also working in a variety of venues to get book access to students and do some book giveaways so they actually have books to take home and make their own through programs like RIF and some other giveaways that we have targeted for this school year. You can keep up to date with Mifflin Reads through all of our social media posts. We'll be putting things out there and having events between now and the end of the year, as well as communications from your individual schools. Hang of this yet, it's a little touchy. So mathematics, when Steve shared the information on mathematics, obviously we're not real thrilled about the results we're getting currently with our mathematics, with the assessments that are going on. So we started a curriculum audit. We had the principals and teachers start looking at our instructional practices for math, how we're teaching math, the strengths to that, and the areas where we can grow in it. And we've put together a 5th to 8th grade math committee. We started there because we want to create a seamless system from pre-K through to 12th grade. And it seemed like starting in the middle would be a good place to get the intermediate school teachers and the middle school teachers together, collaborating and working on math instructional practices and resources. They're going to take a look at what are considered best practices in teaching math, along with what are similar schools to Governor Mifflin doing and being successful. So we'll look at schools that have similar demographics, similar attendance sizes, and see if they're being successful and what they're using to be successful as we move forward. And that committee will be looking for areas where we can grow in our math instruction. All students are our students is a motto that we've been using throughout the district. And one of the areas that also we were targeted for improvement at the high school was with our special needs students. But we know that that's not just a high school thing. That starts down in the elementary schools. So we all need to take ownership from kindergarten, pre-K, all the way through to 12th grade. One of the key ingredients to that is going to be access to core curriculum. Our students can't learn the grade level expectations if they're not in the classroom for the delivery from the regular education teacher. So we want to make sure that we're keeping our students in the regular ed classroom, supporting them with special education teachers and paraprofessionals so that they can access that learning. And we also want to make sure that we're differentiating for them. We know we need to put supports in place so that they can have access to that grade level material. And inclusionary practices goes back to, as much as we can, delivering those educational services in the classroom. There are times when students need to leave the classroom for them, but that should be the exception. It should not be our default. Our default needs to be to have all the students in the classroom and celebrate that we're all students and all community of learners together. Many of the things that were shared so far for me were best practices. Those are the things we do to give our best instructional practices in school. But we also always have an eye to next practices. What are the innovative technology and strategies that are out there that we can enhance our student learning with? One of those that we're working on is project-based learning. Project-based learning is not just a project. When many of us were in schools, we did projects. This is a way of learning through experiencing a project where the students actually have some student choice and voice on what they're choosing to do. It's facilitated by a teacher. It's not a teacher standing up and delivering all the information. The teacher facilitates and supports the students as they learn through inquiry and research, and then they create a public product and get a chance to share their learning, Could be a video on YouTube for a global audience, could be coming to a school board meeting to share their learning. A lot of what you saw going on in the lobby tonight were the public products of project-based learning activities that occurred this school year. Going into the 2019-2020 school year, all of our kindergarten through 6th grade students will have at least one project-based learning activity through the course of the year. Hopefully it'll be more than one, but they'll have at least one, and then we'll be expanding that into middle school and the high school also. Computer sciences, we're glad to announce, if you haven't heard yet, our innovation teachers were just awarded a $35,000 grant from the state to expand computer sciences. So they are going to embed computer science lessons within their innovation curriculum in pre-K to 6th grade, and then that will follow suit through the middle school and the high school as they expand opportunities for computer science in both the middle school and the high school. Student-centered learning experience is up and running. That started this year at the high school. It's a really great, again, student choice of voice. We keep talking about letting our students have an opportunity to choose their learning and the path of their learning. In the student-centered learning experience, the high school students get a say in how they're going to learn biology, or how they're going to learn their English, or how they're going to learn their social studies. The teachers are there to facilitate and make sure they're learning the standards they need within each of those, but the students get to pick their direction and their path that works best for them in order to do that learning. It's a really unique setting at the high school where they have this going on, and I know they constantly are meeting to improve and expand it as we go into the next school year. And lastly, for instructional practices, in order for us to keep delivering high-end instructional practices, we need to have high-end professional development. So we've made several initiatives in the district this year. One of them, we were very fortunate to be an affiliated school with the Teachers College from Columbia University, and they are probably the renowned teachers of reading and writing in our country, if not across the world. And we have a partnership set up where they're coming into Governor Mifflin throughout the school year and doing professional development with our teachers in kindergarten through 6th grade. They actually were at Brecknock all day today, and they do small group meetings with them. They go out and model in the classrooms, and the teachers collaborate with the staff developer at least 5 times throughout the school year in each grade level through each building. So we're really excited about that. It's been a great opportunity so far. Responsive Classroom is a national philosophy that has to do with teaching the whole child. So not just the academic parts of the students, but also the emotional and social growth of the students, because we know we can't really be effective in our academic learning unless our social emotional needs are met also. We have 30 teachers that will be attending Responsive Classroom workshop that we're hosting here on the Governor Mifflin campus this summer, so we're excited to have a national workshop here for our Mifflin teachers at the end of June. Collaboration is an ongoing initiative that's been focused at the middle school and the high school, with teachers working together to embed collaboration opportunities within their instructional practices. The One to World initiative with the devices in the classroom has really helped with this, and teachers are now finding ways for their students to collaborate, not just within the district and across buildings, high school to elementary school, but also outside of our buildings and collaborate with schools around the world, schools around our district or around our county, and have those opportunities because it is truly a global world for them that they're living in today. And with that, I will hand off to Stephanie Seifert to talk to you about high-quality staff.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Seifert, and I'm the Director of Human Resources for Governor Mifflin School District, which means that while we're rightfully spending most of our time and focus on our students and our student learning, I get the great job of focusing on our amazing staff. And we do have a large staff. We sometimes forget that we are not just a school district, but we're also a large employer within our community. We have over 860 employees at Governor Mifflin School District, which I know a lot of times takes folks by surprise that we have so many employees, but you can see that the greatest number of employees, the largest group, is of course our teachers, our professional educators who are working every day with our students. The second largest group is our support staff, and this includes custodians, maintenance personnel who keep our grounds and our buildings ready for our students and staff, our food service workers, but the largest group within our support staff are our paraprofessional and building aides. And so again, these are folks who are directly working with our students every day in their learning. We also have over 150 co-curricular coaches, folks that help with our band and our music program. We know our students learn in a variety of ways, and as Dr. Gerhard said, we're very fortunate that we have robust programs for our students and the staff, and of course many, many volunteers who support that. And we have about 130 substitute personnel. Now about 75 of those substitute personnel are teacher substitutes, so when our teachers are out, ill, or on a leave, between 70 and 75 of that substitute staff number are teachers. The balance are support staff who also have substitutes come in when they're absent as well. One of the things that we've talked a lot about is benchmarking our student information. We also like to benchmark our staffing to be sure that we're in line with other districts across the state in our staffing numbers. So you can see from this graphic that in comparison to districts with similar student enrollment numbers, similar aid in a suburban location, that we are kind of on target. We have about 13.6 staff members per pupil, and across the state with similar school districts are around 13.8. So we are right in line with the staffing numbers that you would expect to see in similar districts. So one of the largest responsibilities that any human resources department has is, of course, talent acquisition, which is just a fancy way of saying recruiting and hiring the best people. And Governor Mifflin's no different. You can see from the numbers we spend a fair amount of time recruiting, interviewing, and hiring the best people to come work at Governor Mifflin. One of the challenges that we face now and that we're going to continue to face is that the state of Pennsylvania has a very significant shortage of people going into the field of education. So between 2017 and 2018, the number of teacher certifications that were given by the Pennsylvania Department of Education dropped 58%. So that was a huge drop in the number of young people coming out of college, taking up the noble profession of being a teacher, an educator, and it's dropped in just 1 year, 58%. And it had already dropped a fair percentage going from 2016 to 2017. So we are seeing a far less students going into education, therefore far less teachers that we have in our candidate pool. So although we've enjoyed some great numbers and a candidate funnel of lots of applicants to a lot of interviews, and we're hiring the best people at Governor Mifflin, that's just going to be more challenging. So we have to recruit differently, and we also have to look at ourselves as an employer a little differently. So we are expanding some of our recruiting efforts across the state and even into other states. And we also have to look at how do we continue to be a great place to work. So we've enjoyed a low turnover rate at Governor Mifflin. We have about an 8% turnover rate, most of which comes from retirements. Across the nation in all different industries, the typical average is between 10 and 15%. So that tells us that we don't have a lot of unwanted turnover. But we do have over 50 teachers who have 24 to 38 years of experience, which means retirement is inevitable for that group. And with a teacher shortage, again, the recruiting piece is going to be a great challenge for us over the next few years. One of the things that you can do as an employer, you have to hire and recruit great people, but you also have to keep great people, and you have to know what makes them tick and what makes them happy. So one of the things that we wanted to do was participate in and benchmark ourselves against other employers, and not just other school districts and other nonprofits, but against employers across the state of Pennsylvania. So we participated this year in the Best Places to Work, sponsored by Best Companies, and it benchmarked us against companies all across the state of Pennsylvania, large and small. And we specifically chose to work with this organization because we wanted to have lots of robust data around us as an employer that we could then work with. And so since we are competing with other industries for young people going into the field of education, but also for employees, we felt like this would be great data to help us continue to be better as an employer. And you can see that we did end up with some great positive information about our staff, 95% of whom, and this included all staff, so support staff, teachers, administrators, every role within the district. 95% believe in and support the mission and vision of the district. 92% willing to regularly give extra effort to make sure that we're successful. 97% enjoy the work that they perform. 92% understand the importance of their role. And 91% enjoy the people that they work with. So we got had some great information that we can work with. Much of it was very positive. We also had a couple areas where we saw that we need to improve as an employer. Specifically, the 5 areas you see listed here: relationships with supervisor, some leadership and planning information, role satisfaction, communication, and culture. And within that, there was some great detail, which I won't bore you all with this evening, that we're now using as a leadership and an administrative team to dig into those details and come up with an action plan on the things that we can do better so that we are an attractive employer to the great staff that we have. We know that it takes all of our staff members, our support, and our professional staff to make Governor Mifflin great and to be a great place to work. And so we're committed to continuing to not only hire the best talent, but also keep the best talent at Governor Mifflin. And with that, Mrs. Richards.
Good evening. I am Diane Richards, the Chief Financial Officer for Governor Mifflin School District. I'm just going to take a couple minutes tonight to go over some key financial pieces of the district and where we are. So this first slide is a pie chart showing revenue and the revenue sources for our district. You will see that our district is extremely reliant on local revenue. 72% of our revenue comes from local sources. Of that piece of the pie, 83% comes from real estate taxes. And I don't know if you saw, but 2 Sundays ago in the Reading Eagle, they did an article on January 20th about school funding. And within that article, it showed that Pennsylvania, over an average, contributed 38% to school district funding. There were only 5 other states that contributed the same or less than PA. So we as a state are fairly low on what the state contributes to schools for their funding formula. And due to that, unfortunately, that means that we are also then very heavily reliant on local revenue, which is exactly what our pie chart shows. You will see too that while the Reading Eagle showed that the average is 38% for the state to contribute to schools, we are only receiving 26%. So that average can range, and there are winners and losers in the state funding formula. You may have heard that the state did redo that funding formula. It was way overdue, and so that was a good thing that they readdressed it. The problem is that new state funding formula only addresses new monies that are put into the state formula and that state line item for education. So it does not address the entire pot of money that goes out to the schools. It only addressed the new money that goes in. So while the funding formula is a good thing, it's unfortunately going to take many, many years for that to even out and for the funding to be more equitably spread amongst all the school districts across the state. This slide just shows you where we stand as a school district in relation to our millage. Our millage for the current school year with the July 1 bills was 28.1 mils. You can see that the state average, we are below, the county average. We are below the county average, and we were smack in the middle of all the other school districts in the county with where our millage currently stands. As part of the big piece of real estate taxes is assessment values. This slide shows you and gives you a picture over the last 10 years of where the assessment values for our district have been and where they are. We cover this because, as you can see, and it's a good thing, we've had a lot of growth in our district recently. Coomer Township is working very diligently to work on the corridor of Lancaster Avenue. You will have seen on that corridor the Good Life building that has been renovated. You will also have seen, obviously, Sheets being added. Those are great additions to our district. What a lot of people don't know is, unfortunately, we have also seen some tremendous decline. One of the largest of those is the Titusville station. that is near the Animal Rescue League, or was near the Animal Rescue League. The district suffered a $5.1 million loss in assessment value due to that Titusville station no longer being functional and them challenging their assessment. So while we are seeing some growth, we are unfortunately also seeing some decline, and that has a great impact on our ability to bring in additional revenue into the district. So the good news is it's at least been steady and we haven't seen a decline, but the bad news is we are not seeing some significant growth within the district regarding that. So like we talked about with the revenue, we also have a pie chart showing where most of our expenses go for the district. You will clearly see that 69%, our largest chunk, goes into our salaries and benefits for the staff here that Stephanie just described and the numbers that we have. So it just emphasizes for us as a district the importance that we have to place in making sure that we are properly managing all of our employees and the benefits related to those employees due to the large significance that it has to our overall budget. We can't very well talk about finances here at the school without bringing up again the state retirement system, or PSERS. And it has had probably the most significant change over the last 10 years for our district and what happens and where have our finances gone. So you will see in this slide that we have gone from 0.6 million in expenses for our pension to over 5 million. That gap of 4.4 million over those 10 years is over 3 mils for this district. So it has had a significant change in where our resources are going, and the fact, as we discussed earlier about the state, where those additional monies need to come from, which is unfortunately from the local residents and our local funding. There has been new legislation, in case you haven't heard, in regards to the state retirement system, as we call it, PSERS. So with all new teachers that get hired July 1, or actually all new employees, not just teachers, all new employees that get hired July 1 of 2019, there will be a hybrid system now of not only a defined benefit plan, but also a defined contribution plan, like a 401k. So those changes will be good. However, what most people don't know is those changes will take more than 20 years for them to have any financial impact and real savings for the district. So it's a good thing and it needed to happen. However, the impact is going to take a long, long time for it to actually have some good financial savings for the district. This last slide talks about special education. And what we have seen over, again, the last 10 years, another significant area of growth for this district. You will see initially back in 2008-9, where we were just expending a little over $5 million. We are now a little bit almost at $12 million. What you will see in the green section is the amount of state funding that we have received over that same 10-year time frame. And you will see that it has barely changed, if at all. So as special education increases have come, unfortunately, again, those costs have to be passed on to the local residents and been picked up from local revenues, which is more than $8 million of funding that has had to been, the gap has had to be made up from our residents because the state has not given us additional monies. Because of this gap, and because we are not the only district experiencing it, this has become a very big initiative this coming year. You will hear more about it. Most of the state organizations are making it their platform to request from the state some additional monies for special education costs that have drastically increased, and we are presenting these facts and this data to our legislators to help us get that additional money. So that's really it for me on the financial piece. Just a quick plug. We went over just a couple of things. If you'd like to hear more financial data about our district and where we will be with the 2019-2020 budget, please come out to our budget town hall in April. April 29th, Dr. Gerhard and I will be covering the budget, and we also will be allowing our residents, as we have in the past, to ask any questions that you would like in regards to our money and how we budget, and we will answer those during that budget town hall. So I hope to see you there.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Eckenrode. I am the Chief Operating Officer for the school district. Thank you again for coming this evening and braving the weather and the expected weather that we're going to have coming in. So I know everybody wants to get out tonight and get their snow shovels ready again. Just a couple quick highlights from me. A few slides I just want to share with each of you. Some numbers that maybe you've never seen before and some things to share. Our buildings, our school district buildings, make up buildings only 733,000 square feet of building space that our teams manage and take care of. Our custodial staff and our maintenance staff take care of on a daily basis. 104 acres of district campus is maintained, which is, our grounds teams, all the folks in our maintenance department. You can see we have 41 team members in our custodial staff. Our maintenance team members are made up of 10 folks on our maintenance team. Those guys also maintain all of those 104 acres, including all the snow removal for the school district. So they go way above and beyond. They do a great job every day, and that's one of the things I want to highlight in the next slide and share with you. Our total number of work orders that we do as a school district for just the last 12 months, so our 12 months from today back, we've accomplished 4,632 work orders as a maintenance and facilities team, which is huge for me. And one of the indicators that I look for when we look at successful teams in facilities management are these two numbers right here. So our two numbers, this total corrective maintenance and this total planned maintenance number, we want that total planned maintenance number to be at least 50% of the total work order number over 12 months. So this shows, between our entire, if we're looking at 10 maintenance team members that are covering work orders, we're accomplishing 50% of that in a preventative maintenance fashion and not reactionary, which is a big deal for us on the maintenance team. With that, we look at work orders per square foot as well, and we rank this. This is really just speaks to the level and the numbers we want to get to from a preventative maintenance standpoint. This ranks us among 20%, the top 20% in the country as far as school districts go in the work order system program. So out of 2,897 school districts that are looked at in this way across the country, Governor Mifflin School District, in how we perform maintaining, aging buildings throughout our school district. We all know, our schools were built 50s, 60s, 1970s, and our teams maintain those older school systems, the mechanicals and aging material in our school buildings. They do a great job with that. So, our hats off to our maintenance team, our custodial team for that hard work. How that is looked at across the country as well per employee, just in our maintenance team alone, 387. This blue line indicates our teams here at Governor Mifflin and how they rank across those other support mechanisms across the country. Our average maintenance person is taking care of 387 work orders per year individually on average, which is a great number, and that number is also in the top 20% in the country. Another thing I wanted to touch on was our integrated data management system, which has already been rolled out in our Finance and Human Resources Department this past July. How that will impact parents moving forward is that you're gonna see changes as it relates to student information in July of 2019, where our Power School information and information in Power School that you're getting now will transition over to Skyward as well. And then in July 2020, it will also transition our special education. So you'll be seeing more information come out about that soon if you haven't already. And we look forward to integrating all of our network operations into our Skyward program. Couple quick items just to share out. Our safety committee here at the school district, we've worked hard over the past 3 or 4 months to really bolster that committee into 10 members. Each of those 10 members, we get together on a monthly basis. They do safety inspections throughout the school buildings. They report back, they work on action plans, and that safety committee is doing a fantastic job. The school police officers, we are in the process of hiring a second school police officer to patrol in our buildings, as well as, our secondary campus has gotten a lot of attention over the past, several years, and our staff does a great job there, but we also want to make sure that we're patrolling those other individual school buildings as well as we do our secondary campus. Safe to Say something. I know information has gone out to parents regarding Safe to Say. It rolled out in January 14th of this year, and I have additional information out in the front lobby. If you need additional information on that, I'd be glad to answer any questions after this presentation, but also more information is coming out to you in the near future. It's being rolled out to students this month and next month. So our Safe to Say Something program is the tips line. If you haven't, I know information has gone out, but it really is a great system. We already have an anonymous tip system here at Governor Mifflin, and this will be a second, side-by-side program that is running here at the school district. Our Crisis Go app is really an internal communication tool for crisis here in the school district. So everything from fire drills to any other events, emergency snow events. It's a great communication tool here in our school district, and we're also, you'll see more information come out about that, but it's really a great internal communication tool that we're looking forward to moving forward. With that, I'd like to introduce Melissa Fullerton, and she will take it from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. So I'm Melissa Fullerton. I'm the Director of Communications and Community Relations. That's my official title. This time of year, I'm mostly known as the lady who makes the snow calls. I'm looking over, I haven't gotten the signal yet. No signal from Dr. Gerhard. We're coming in so far. So I just want to talk to you briefly, I'm the last one in this line, about the connections with the greater community. And if you remember that chart that Dr. Gerhard showed us at the beginning, our connections with our community are, to me, like the sweet candy-coated shell that holds all of this together. So we really have a district-wide focus on connecting with the experts in our community and the members of our community on a number of different levels. One of the tools that we use for that the most is our social media presence. And we are most active on Facebook because that is where we see our target audience being most active as well. So there we have a growing audience almost daily. We might see one person join our audience on a day, or we might see dozens depending on what we've got going on. Facebook's important for us because we can be doing regular reporting. We can be reporting back to you and give you a window into our working world every day, what our teachers are doing, what our staff members are doing, what our students are doing. And you'll see a lot of celebrations on Facebook because our students and staff give us a lot to celebrate. So we are excited to be putting out those daily doses of excitement about our district and getting you excited about what we're doing. But on the flip side of that, because we're using those exciting moments to grow our audience, when we need to get information out to you in a crisis or in an important situation, on a snow day, we have a very large and responsive audience at those times too. And also during those times is when we typically see a lot of back and forth with you when you're engaging with us, and we're watching that. We see what you like, we see what you don't like, we see what you're telling us to give you more of in those moments of crisis sometimes, and so we're constantly using that to refine how we communicate back to you. We also use Facebook as a teaching and learning tool. Up until this year, it was a little bit of a passive teaching and learning tool. We were trying to lead by example for our community, for our students and staff, show how to use social media and this new media as an effective tool. to get your messaging out, to reach an audience. But this year we used it as a very active teaching and learning tool. You might have seen earlier this month, I worked with some of our teachers in the high school, our librarian, to present our 9th graders with a digital citizenship presentation. And as part of my presentation to them, I wanted to show them how fast and far information could travel on social media, on these devices that they carry in their pockets. And so we put out a post and we literally asked you, please like and share this post. And within the 40 minutes of the class period that we had, by the end of that 40 minutes, that post had reached 3,000 people, which to me was like, I knew we could do better, but the kids thought that was amazing because they really don't realize how far and fast information can travel, and they think Facebook's dead, so they really didn't think anyone was paying attention. But even more importantly than that, we had done that on a Friday. By Monday, I met with another group of 9th graders at 8:30 on Monday morning. And at that point, that post had reached 89,000 people, and 25,000 people had interacted with it. So we know we have the potential for a large audience on social media, and so we do use that quite a bit. Something else that we're focusing on and excited to celebrate with you is are some changes to our Governor Mifflin Education Foundation. For the first time since the foundation was founded in 1994, we have a designated executive director who's leading our foundation. Brett Mayer is here with us tonight. He's there in the back and was out in the lobby as you were coming in. He has a strong background in fundraising and in working with foundations and nonprofits, and so he has developed with our board a strategic plan to move our foundation forward. Why is this important? Because this connects us to other parts of the community who want to be connected to our district in a philanthropic way. Just before I came to you today, I took a phone call from Quadrant that was meant for Brett, but Quadrant, which is a business outside of our district, called and said, hey, we want to give you $5,000. In this photo, when Sheets was moving into our community, they called and said, hey, can we donate? Do you have a foundation that we can donate to? And they gave us $2,500. So by having a strong foundation with an increased presence and some strategy behind it, that is definitely a way for our district to connect with other community members that are not necessarily part of our Governor Mifflin community, but want to support and enhance what we do through some financial resources. And then finally, community collaborations have become part of our district, not just through my department, but it's really become interwoven into every part of our district. Bill McKay touched on it a little bit. A few years ago, we introduced this idea of collaboration, and Bill talked about project-based learning, and so we're seeing teachers and staff make direct connections with the community to enhance what they're doing in their classrooms. They're tapping into experts outside and bringing those real-world experiences into the classrooms. As a district, we look for opportunities to collaborate as well to try to scale that for as many of our students as possible. So this year we had our first green with Ledge Rock Golf Club, and that was a day for students in grades K through 12 who came to Ledge Rock and worked with their staff to see the science, technology, engineering, and math that goes into running a golf course. So they got a taste of some different careers. They got to see how some of what they're learning in the classroom applies in the real world. It was a very eye-opening day, but it really strengthened also that relationship with Ledge Rock, and we also have a date on the calendar for our next first green next year. So there really are endless opportunities when we collaborate with our community. And the final part of that is our homecoming celebration. So we celebrated our second community homecoming celebration this past fall. We have our third one coming up on September 21st of this year. And that is really an opportunity for us as a district to give back to our community. That's how we look at it. It is a free event. We invite our businesses and our organizations to come in and set up a table at our homecoming tailgate so that we can showcase them, so that they can connect with each other, and so that we can really celebrate all that's going on in our district. So with that, as we talk about celebrations, I would like to introduce a group that we celebrate almost every year here at Governor Mifflin because they are very successful. The Governor Mifflin Indoor Percussion Ensemble is comprised of 27 students from grades 8 to 12. They rehearse twice a week and compete throughout the winter and spring. The students compete against groups from 4 states, and the season culminates with the Atlantic Coast Championships in Wildwood, New Jersey each May. For the past 2 seasons, the Governor Mifflin Indoor Percussion has won their division in Wildwood, and this year they're hoping for a three-peat with their show, Generation Next.
One day, this generation will rule the population.
This is a unique generation of Governor Mifflin's students.
No longer do I stand in front of the class and spoon feed them all of the information and then give them a test.
For these students, phones have always been smart, and their desire to be connected is matched by a strong sense of independence.
Like the teacher was up there just saying all of like what you have to do, it would probably take a long time, and like it might not feel as you accomplished it.
The defining traits of the students of today are redefining education at Governor Mifflin. Giving students voice and choice is the powerful practice permeating all grade levels and disciplines.
You don't want to leave high school and not experience what you wanted to do.
Take a look and see how students and staff are reshaping the educational landscape at Governor Mifflin.
In the beginning, I would say I was definitely a little not ready for this program, and so it definitely became like a learning experience for me, both like educationally, and so I know myself now. I know what I have to get done, and I know I have to be like responsible and on time.
That self-awareness is part of the design of the student-centered learning experience known as CLE. In its inaugural year, this hybrid of online and in-class learning was offered to a cohort of 50 sophomores. For this first year, there were 6 SCLE courses. For next school year, that number has more than doubled, and so has the number of interested students.
We're getting ready for college ourselves in this classroom and asking for help when we need to, so we like have responsibilities for ourselves.
For teachers, that means less lecturing and more checking in, guiding, and helping ensure each student stays on their individual pace.
The students take more ownership and control of their learning. We map out for them what they need to learn. We give them a variety of resources, and the students decide how they want to learn, when they want to learn, and how they want to show what they've learned to us.
This is definitely pushing you to be the best you can be, and a lot of teachers are seeing what you do in class and they're recommending things for you.
The demand for independent learning is also being met with the growth of the high school internship program. This year, 20 students are receiving an on-the-job experience, including Zarika Cruz-Roman, who plans to pursue criminal justice. She traded a senior year study hall for a daily assignment in Governor Mifflin's Office of Safe Schools.
He understands what I want to do, what I'm looking for, and just the job that I want to pursue in my career.
From daily patrols and safety checks,
and it's every day,
to softer skills.
He'll show me like planning skills, organizing skills.
They taught me like sympathy and empathy.
Maddie Dombrowski plans to pursue a career as a funeral director. After completing an internship with Giles and Yeckley Funeral Home, she feels confident investing time and money into a college program.
I didn't want to go to college and not like it, so this gave me the big opportunity to do it.
It's not just upperclassmen craving a connection to the professional world. Teachers and students across the district are tackling real-world problems through project-based learning.
Students want to solve the problem, and they want to solve the problem in a way that they can do sustained inquiry, that they can figure out the problem and how to solve it for the world.
Along the way, students have a say in everything, from where they sit to how they research, take notes, and demonstrate their learning. With less structured instruction, teachers are finding an increased excitement.
I would say they're ravenous. They can't get enough.
I like the voice and choice because when you do it, you feel like you're a success, and you did something very successful, and you achieved.
Their excitement about what they're learning it's unlike anything else I've ever seen.
In Mandy Dorverik's third grade classroom, project-based learning has elevated student engagement over the past few years. And this year, that has been heightened with the addition of Reading Workshop, a new approach to teaching reading in grades pre-K through 6. Once again, it's light on lecturing, and the focus is on the student.
We have a brief 10-ish minute mini lesson where we basically teach, here's what I want you to learn today and what I want you to apply to your work.
From there, students get an hour of independent reading with books of their choice matched to their individual reading level. Teachers use that time to work with students one-on-one or in small groups. For Missy Mellinger, that means customizing her approach for every 5th grader in her class.
Because I get to sit and actually see what they're struggling with, and I can, right there on the spot, help them.
And while Reading Workshop is only in its first year, there's evidence of success in watching this group of digital natives devour good old-fashioned books.
They find a book and they get excited about a book and they'll say, "Oh, Mrs. Mellinger, have you read this book?" And I'm like, "I've read that book. Have you read the book too?" "What? There's another one?" And before you know it, that energy becomes contagious.
Across the district, this boundless education demands more of both teachers and students.
But my role with my thinking is where I really changed.
I am adjusting my teaching daily.
You have to be keeping on yourself, and you have to know yourself, and it takes a little bit to do that.
But the most difficult part may be measuring the reward.
This is my 13th year. I haven't experienced that much joy about books.
I think I matured a lot more.
I feel pretty confident. I feel like I'm definitely ahead.
Like you would win a race or you would win a tournament. You feel really good inside.
So every year in the State of the District, we close with hearing from our students and our staff out in the classrooms, the different work that we're doing and the different initiatives. And in the close of the video, they talked about with the different changes that we're introducing and what we're experiencing, what does that measure of success or that measure of reward look like? And so I think we find ourselves as a district with data that we've been presenting over the last few years with really thinking now is the time that we really need to get a focus on what the future of education really is going to look like. Last couple of years, specifically last year, I presented to the district this idea that as an organization, an education organization, we need to be ambidextrous. And this causes some stress in an organization, no doubt, because it challenges the organization to see how equipped are they for the pace of change. Sort of like the horsepower of an engine in a car. Is there enough horsepower for that car, or is it too much? And so last year when we talked about being ambidextrous as an organization, shared the idea that yes, we're always working for improvement. So in what we're doing, what we have in place, yes, we're always striving for that incremental improvement. Whether you want to use PSSA scores, whether you want to use Keystone scores, attendance, whatever, we're always working to try to get better. But at the same time, while we're doing that in those best practices, we do need to, as an organization, be exploring what those next practices are. And in that idea and that thinking around innovation. And I shared with the district last year, and we keep revisiting, when we talk about innovation, what we mean as a working definition is that it changes the pattern of performance. It's not just improving it, it changes that performance. It changes what you measure. But in that innovation, in order for it to truly be an innovation, it has to sustain over time. And you have to look at it and say, where do you find the opportunities for that innovation to become part of the overall system? And that is really where we find ourselves. Because as you explore our district, you will see lots of pockets of innovation. But when we have those pockets of innovation that we're finding some success, is how do we now take that pocket and make it a system thing? And so that's why now we need to embark as a whole district community on strategic planning for our future. Let me give you a little bit of an example. So I'm a former history teacher, and believe it or not, or I guess not, or believe it, I love looking back in the old yearbooks. And Melissa Fullerton has every yearbook, even beyond Shillington High, on her bookshelf. She's got a great archive there. But the one yearbook that I pulled off the shelf because it ties into some work that we've been doing over the last few months was the yearbook from the class of 1958. Anybody know why? Go ahead, Chris. It is the first graduating class from Governor Mifflin High School. So the year 1957, 1958 was the very first year that this high school was open and welcoming a class of students, and the class of 1958. And what struck me is when I read the foreword is, yeah, in the foreword they talk about thanking the community, thanking the many people that work together to build this, to bring the community, the different boroughs and townships of the Governor Mifflin community together to create a vision at that time for what the future of education was going to be and build a building in order for that education to happen. But what struck me the most when I read this forward was the recurring use of the word dream. It wasn't about the building, but it was about the dream that a community had for what they wanted the future of education for their students to look like, and how to turn that dream into a reality for this community and for its children. There's a quote that I've used in the past, a Winston Churchill quote with, buildings, we shape our buildings and forever they shape us. And so back in the fall, or I should say last year, we as a district recognized that, as Rob had introduced, we have some aging buildings. And it's imperative for us to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that the environment and the quality of the buildings is up to par for our students and for our staff to do their very best work. So last year we did partner with an architect firm to take a look at both our middle school and our high school. Because our middle school, for example, has not been touched since 1993. You might say, well, 1993 doesn't seem that long ago, but when you consider the use of that building, the mechanicals, there's a shelf life, so to speak, for buildings. In our high school, yes, there are certain elements with parts of our high school that have been touched, but there are also parts of our high school, as a 1987 grad, I look and say, that science classroom is exactly like that science classroom was when I was a student in 1985. So when we asked the architect, say, just take a look at our buildings, look at the secondary campus, what do you see, what's the state of our buildings? And they came back to the school board and said, to get your Americans, or this ADA up to code, get other codes with fire safety and things like that up to snuff, to improve your environmental situation relative to your mechanicals, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and to also improve various safety aspects of these buildings. And you're looking at $40 million over the next 5 to 8 years. So in that conversation that we were having at the board meeting, I remember distinctly one board member saying, okay, so $40 million and the ribbon cutting is for what? So we stopped there and said, we owe it to our community to stop and take a deeper dive into looking at our buildings and looking at the future of education and seeing if there are other opportunities that we need to be exploring besides just looking and saying we're going to do $40 million just to put a fresh coat of paint and improve the mechanicals and nothing else changes. So we gathered a group of community members, staff, parents, members of different boroughs and townships, members of different parent groups, and over the last few months we've been looking at different options. All told, we came up with 7 different options to explore. Because trust me, I get stopped regularly saying, when are you going to build a new school? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? And so we had to go down. We had to go down and explore those options so that we could report back to the community what those options looked like. And so yes, somebody asked the other day, did I hear one of the options was that you were going to tear down one of the buildings and build new? Yeah, that was one of the options. Is it currently an option? No. Because we've explored that option and we see everything that went behind that option. So where we are now, where we last left the group, is recognizing that the options that we wanted to explore deeper were not doable options relative to the impact they would have on our larger community. So we sort of went back to the drawing board, and we're currently working with one option right now and seeing what can be done in amending that option and honoring some of the things that the community group said that they would like to see. So later in February, we're expecting the architect firm to come back with some amendments to that option, and if after the board takes a look at it, if they want to move forward with getting more community feedback, at that time we'll re-engage the community group as well, expand out to the larger district community the options that we're looking to explore. Because ultimately, it's not about, I say this often, not about doing more with less, it's about doing more differently. And so where are there some options that we can think differently in how we use our buildings and how we shape those buildings and how it can have a significant influence on what the future of education could be for our students for the next 25 to 50 years. So that goes back to some of the why now, because that's just one piece. Well, we find ourselves in almost in 2020, and there's a lot of talk about 2020, the year 2020, and I'm sort of hoping we can have a different conversation about the year 2020 as it relates to the future of our students and the future of our community for the next 10 years. January 2012 was the last time that we had a large community group work to develop our district strategic plan, which certainly includes our mission, our vision, our values, and had set a direction forward for the district. But as I think about since 2012 till today, if I think also about the why now, why do we need to go through a strategic plan? We have a pace of changing context that is rapidly changing. And when I talk about changing context, I think about personally, when I made the decision to go into education, it was 1987. The context at that time in which I made my decision to go into teaching and what school looked like, what society looked like, was so much different than what it is today. And I would also argue that somebody who could be, 10 years ago, and the context in which they made their decision has changed so much in those last 10 years. So that pace of change is only getting faster and faster. One example, since 2012, 30% of our staff is new. We also have generational differences. Not only do we have the millennials in the working world now, but we got Generation Z and we got Generation Alpha, and if you study all those other generations, they're coming to our schools. It's a much different group of students that we're experiencing coming into our schools. I would say that when I was a student in the 1980s, teachers were probably saying the same thing about me. And lastly, as we take a look at education, I believe education is the solution, not the problem. And we need to come together as a community and say, with all the challenges that we have in our society, that we have in our economy, and we have in our country, there's never been a more important time to make sure that we have a solid, educated citizenry. But it's a community endeavor, not just a school endeavor. So that is why I believe the time is ripe for us as a district community to think locally and how we can improve the future direction of our students for the next 10 years and beyond. And as the foreword from that yearbook said, turn dreams into realities for our students and for our community. So there is, if you haven't picked it up already, there is a card out front. We're branding our strategic plan, Focus 2020. 2020 vision, get it? That was Melissa's idea. No, but we have a card out front, and it's Focus Year 2020. Creating clear vision for education requires varied perspectives. And so what we're asking and inviting our larger community, so you're getting the first invite today. We're certainly going to be pushing it out through our community, through our Mustang Messenger, social media outlets, is if you're interested in being part of this strategic planning process, complete the back side of this card. Has name, contact information, also a little bit of a description of what perspective do you have that you feel that you could, bring to the team. And then there's a Dropbox that if you fill it out tonight and you want to leave it, great. If you want to get it to me a little bit later, that's awesome. That's also fine. We're looking to start this in March, going through into next year. So certainly more information to come, but you're seeing the first hot off the presses invitation if you're interested in being part of a larger district strategic planning process. So with that, I thank you very much for your endurance and your perseverance and your grit through this presentation. I did say out there that if you stayed to the end, I would let you know if we had school tomorrow, but I don't know. I haven't seen. That's right. I leave. I want to be a weather person. Can I just say that? Because I can say whatever I want, and I have no accountability. I can say it's going to be 3 to 5 inches, and if it doesn't snow at all, oh well, you'll tune in the next day to see what the weather is there. So also, just to reiterate Diane's invitation, save the date. Certainly we'll be pushing out more information for our budget town hall. The way we've done this in the past is we send out an invitation before the event, asking you to submit your questions in advance. So the whole presentation is not just a presentation of the budget, but it's an answer to the questions that are submitted. And we ask to have those questions submitted in advance because that way we're best equipped to give you a good solid answer, because as you can imagine with a lot of financial information, it's not always easy to come up with answers off the cuff. So it gives us a chance to research and make sure that you have your questions answered. Plus past town hall events are on our district website, and so if you're having a hard time going to sleep, please go on. There's YouTube channels on there that you can see, and we segment it out, so it's only like 15-20 minutes long each one. So it's not that you have to sit through a whole hour to fall asleep. So, no, again, thank you very much. I see a lot of faces in the audience that make it a regular habit to be here. I very much appreciate seeing and the concern and care that you have for our students and for the larger Governor Mifflin School District community. So thank you again. Have a great night.